It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show. Hey.
Let me talk, because this is the only, we're pals and stuff, but you never get to really ask these questions when we're just hanging out. But you are so prolific, and you are,
Thank you.
you crank out.
But you're prolific too.
Yeah, but this is about you. And
But it's also about me.
but
How do we do it?
but I feel like you have you gave me advice to start getting into writing books, and I really do enjoy it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of time. Like there's a your book, both your books are joke heavy. There's not a paragraph that goes without a laugh. I mean, there's very few. But now that you've kind of been spit out of that, and you've got the you act and stuff, but you got the show out of your system.
Yeah.
You went through that. Do you feel like you're in a place where you can just focus on the act, and that all your writing gets poured into that?
It's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is like, because obviously the task of writing a book, which is essays, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, a novel.
Yeah.
But, and it is managing your time, right?
100%.
But I do feel as though it shifts so much, because having done a show, and I'm saying this because you've gone through this, or having written a book and be like, I'm going to do another one. There is something, and there are certain skills that you bring to those things, and also certain things that you acquire from those that you bring into your act.
Yeah.
That I feel as though, like, writing stand-up, and how I write it's changed so much. I don't know about you. It's like, I remember waking my wife up to like, come on, we got to come up with more bacon jokes. And now it's when I'm doing a couple nights in a row, that's when I feel like I'm writing the most. Is because I'll do a set, I'll kind of think about it, and then it's some of it's writing, but a lot of it's on stage. Kind of, I talk with Ted Alexandro a lot,
Right.
and then, but like that's also the coming up with the stand-up is pretty rewarding. So like, I love acting, and so like the forced hiatus, because I think that stand-ups need a forced. You can't solely do stand-up.
Right.
So whether it's a podcast, whether it's writing a book, I think it's healthier for your act to have other outlets.
Yeah.
But
while I'm doing those other things, a lot of times I'm thinking, imagine if I could just take all of this and put it all towards the act.
yeah, but it's also weird, because it's like the it's stand-up is so self-assignment, right? But I mean, this is me being a total comedy nerd. But like, I think that I have this theory that there's there's a theory on how long people want a show to be. I don't know in the podcast world how long it's supposed to be, but my gut is that people want to see an hour and 15, maybe an hour and a half of a show.
Right.
That's my opinion. There
I
are
agree.
comics that have like 3 openers and then they do 2 hours. To me, that seems insane.
Yeah. I start feeling bad about everybody that has a life and has to go back home.
And so, but like, I feel like then there's like, how often do they want new stuff from you? So we know when we go to Austin or Tucson, that there's an unspoken agreement, you're going to come with new material. But do they want a special, what kind of frequency? So we know in like the British culture, it's a new hour every year, which is a little bit, I don't think America wants that. And I think it's also determined by style.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna be packed with as many jokes as we have, an hour every year is, you can get to the hour, you can get to 60 minutes, but is it the packed 60 minutes that
and
you want
gotta,
to share
and there's
with
like
people.
there's also, it's like baking or growing something. You have to let it, like, it's so weird because like we write these chunks, we put them away, and then there'll be this new infusion of an idea 6 weeks later
Right.
that will shrink it or expand it. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there is something about, and that's always shifting about how often and when they want to see it. Like, I think that topical political can be every year. I think that super outrage has to be like once every 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And
like,
even then, you're done after 2.
Super caustic.
Yeah.
Super caustic. It is, and we have friends that are really good at this. And I'm not making this rule. I'm just saying this is my impression.
Because you watch people who have that real anger thing, and then they run out of the anger thing, and it's like you can't you can't be as mad about crayons as you were about the government in your first one.
Yeah. And or like I think it's special doses of it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. But I don't know. I mean, I think that like for Seinfeld gets so mad when I use these terms. For observational guys like you and I kind of feel that the material tends to be evergreen, right?
Yeah.
I feel as though it could be every year or every year and a half. I don't know.
Well, you've been on an every year schedule
with
pretty
COVID.
much, right?
Yeah. But it's weird because there is like Comedy Monster, a lot of people are like, oh, this one's so much better than the last couple. And I'm like, well, the last one was like, I was doing a special about Canada. I was doing a special about Spain. It was a weird project.
Right.
But I do hear like, and so some of the material really could bake, which is pretty important, right?
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. But go back to when you're freed up.
Oh yeah, when you're freed up,
focusing purely
When
on the
you're
act.
freed up.
Is that a fantasy? Because is it a fantasy that now I'm just
Well, remember when we had day jobs, and you're like, "What if I didn't have a day job? I would wake up and I'd start writing."
right? Exactly.
And
then you have the freedom, and you don't.
It's so weird because also there's the balancing act of you need to live your life so you have material,
Right.
but that doesn't mean you shouldn't perform because for me, like when the first year and a half of this pandemic, I mean, I did a couple of drive-in shows, but I didn't really write. I mean, I did the CBS Sunday commentaries, but I don't feel like, I do think that writing other things, to answer your question, is important. It keeps the machine oiled.
Right. Yeah.
But it's weird. I mean, I love acting, and I'll work on, sometimes it's usually a week, sometimes it's 3 weeks. You know, I worked on a movie where it was 4 months, but I almost feel like those forced hiatuses are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I do. I always come back to, I really do have this suspicion that it's a fantasy. Like if you could just throw everything else out, you don't have to do anything else, and you could just pour all into the act. I think it would be minimal how much faster the act grows than the way we're doing it as busybodies.
Yeah, and I think there is something about because there's people that can. I mean, I think Dane Cook did like 2 specials. Louis done 2 specials in a year. There are people that can do it. It's also, I think, again, people that are talking about politics or topical stuff or tabloid stuff. I think the topics are delivered to you, but like when you're talking autobiographically and observational, it's pretty hard to harvest that stuff.
Yeah.
And you also go through it like you're like, I've talked about my family. I certainly don't want to, like I almost feel like in Comedy Monster, I'm like, I was a little bit complaining about my wife. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to go that far.
Right.
Like you want to be this, and I see it in your comedy. You want to be the cynical people we are, but you also don't want to be this cliche of like, yeah, this bag.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
When the reality is they're probably looking at us like this dick. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.